I am grateful to God Almighty for giving us this blessing to have here today and tomorrow the second international conference on Shia studies. Thanks to God, last year we had a very successful conference, and discussing what can we do to improve the conference. Many of our presenters suggested that one day is not enough, we should have 2 days. So we decided to have 2 days, but not knowing that even 2 days would not be enough, so now we have parallel sessions as well. So actually we have programs for 4 days, but now it's compressed 2 days. So it shows that there is interest, and we thank God for this interest, and we thank you for presenting or being present. So either you are presenting a paper or you are present, both of them are appreciated. And I especially like to thank my dear brother, Hujjat al-Islam al-Muslimin Jahangir, and all the team in the college for lots of hard work in receiving papers, evaluating and planning and logistics and everything. And also my thank goes to my sister Amina for her hard work, because she has been the main person in touch with the people who are offering abstracts and presentation or registration. Okay, today I am going to give a little idea about something that I find would be outstanding in Shia heritage, in the way Shia theology, jurisprudence, philosophy, mysticism, and even social activism have been historically unfolded and developed. I many times received this question: what is the difference between Shia and other Muslims? And I am sure many of you also have had this question. When I was in final stage of writing a book for this college on Shia Islam, which is later published in 2001, Shia Islam, Origins, Faith and Practices, I was thinking of having a chapter on major characteristics of Shia Islam. And I thought there are many things that normally are discussed in every book about a religion or a denomination. But I was thinking my readers, my prospective readers, maybe expect me to say something about the spirit of Shia Islam. So I came to this conclusion, this is in 2000, that it might be fair for me to say that there are different characteristics in Shia Islam, but maybe 3 are the most outstanding ones. And that is rationality and spirituality and search for justice. I'm not saying every Shia person is showing these 3 merits, but I'm saying that Shia heritage, whether it be coming from the Quran or the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt or our great scholars, and in large the way our community has interacted with the world, show these 3 things together. And I don't claim also monopoly over this. Actually, I think this is a gift for everyone. So I welcome everyone who says we accept this. In winter last year, we were in Geneva. We had dialogue with World Council of Churches, which is an umbrella organization for 249 different Protestant and Orthodox denominations. And when I said this, everyone welcomed this, and they put in the final statement that this is something good for all religions. So it's not a matter of saying this with pride, in a negative sense or monopoly, just something that I think is useful for all different religious traditions, and I think the Shia heritage is very clear in this. So I wrote this chapter about major characteristics of Shia Islam, and later I gave lectures in London, in Toronto, and then many conferences. And thanks to God, I am very, very convinced that these three are really major aspects of Shia Islam. I remember in 2004, when our dear guest today, who is Abel Timothy Wright, and he has come from the US to take part in this conference, and we are all going to come to start the 7th round of Catholic Shia dialogue. And I invite everyone to listen tomorrow to him. He would have the closing speech about Catholic Shia dialogue. In 2004, Abel Timothy was visiting us for the second time. And this time he had with him one Benedictine father, Father Bonaventura, and two people from Heathrow College. And one of them was Michael Barnes. So it was after midnight, I went to receive them, and Michael asked me, Muhammad, what is the difference between Shia Islam and other versions of Shia Islam? So I said, there are different ways to answer this question, but maybe it's better if I mention these three: rationality, spirituality, and search for justice. And then many times Michael told me that he is thinking about those three. During our visits in Qom, later when I came to UK for several times, I was 1 year here for my sabbatical in Heathrow College, 2006-2007, and last time I saw him in Georgia, in the United States, in American Academy of Religion, he kept always telling me he's thinking about those three. And the last time we met, he said he is writing a book, and one chapter is about those three. So I think this would be a very good meeting point for all religious traditions if we agree on having rational approach to religion, but also be spiritually motivated and oriented and focusing on life, but also not to be indifferent to injustice when it happens in the society. So if we have all these three together, I think would be keeping us away from extremism and also from passivism. So we will be active, but for the good and in a positive way. I thought maybe for me today, because the time is very short, is good to refer to a saying of our seventh Imam, Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, whose demise anniversary was just a few days ago, and who is the father of our 8th Imam and also the sister of Imam, sister Lady Masuma. So I thought it's good to mention this hadith from Imam about the combination between reason and spirituality. Because there are many people who are deep into philosophical discussions, but to combine this with spirituality, this is something amazing, and this would produce, of course, also concern for justice. There is a beautiful hadith that you find it in the beginning of Al-Kafi, page about 15, 16, for a few pages. You have this hadith of Imam Kadhim addressing Hisham. Hisham ibn al-Hakam was a very well-trained person in some of the theological discussions, and Imam told him these beautiful points about knowledge, about rationality, and spirituality. If you are more interested, there is a series of 11 lectures about Imam Kadhim and intellect. You can find it on the internet. Just part of this hadith. Imam says, and this also has to be remembered, that when Imam Kazim alayhi salam said this, in the Muslim world, there was a big discussion about the usage of reason or intellect in religion. There were people that had the idea that philosophy is a heresy, and even some people went to the extent, like Ibn Hazm, who said even logic is a heresy. These are imported from Greek culture and they have nothing to do with Islam. They were not against logic as such, but they were against formal logic, which is a fruit of Greek philosophical discussions and developed further by Aristotle. In that atmosphere of at least having doubt, if not denial, about intellectual approach to religion, look at what Imam Kazim alayhi salam said. He said, Ya Hisham, ma ba'athallahu anbiya'ahu wa rusulahu ila ibadihi illa liya'qilu anillah. If this was said by a philosopher, you could say this is an exaggeration, because, for example, a philosopher may have the tendency of saying philosophy is the most important thing, because normally every person in every field thinks that his field is the most important thing. But this is by an imam who is the vicegerent of God on the earth in Shia understanding, who receives a special type of knowledge from God, although there's no revelation, but they enjoy a special type of knowledge which keeps them away from mistakes and exaggerations and misrepresentation. He says, God has not sent his prophets and messengers to his servants except for them being able to have rational understanding of God, to be able to understand God with their reason. لِيَعْغِلُوا عَنِ اللَّهِ. So every other thing should come out of this, not replacing this. لِيَعْغِلُوا عَنِ اللَّهِ. So the aim of creation and the aim of sending prophets and messengers is to help people develop a rational understanding of God the Almighty. فَأَحْسَنُهُمْ إِسْتِجَابَةً أَحْسَنُهُمْ مَعْرِفَةً. The people who were better in their response to this call are the people who have better knowledge and understanding of God. أَحْسَنُهُمْ إِسْتِجَابَةً أَحْسَنُهُمْ مَعْرِفَةً وَأَعْلَمُهُمْ بِأَمْرِ اللَّهِ أحسنهم عقلا. So the best people in response are those who have better understanding, and those who have better understanding are those people who are better in their aql, who are better in usage of intellect. وَأَكْمَلُهُمْ عَقْلًا. I wish everyone was able to understand Arabic, but I try to translate it, but the sweetness of Arabic is different. Imam says أَكْمَلُهُمْ عَقْلًا. The most perfect of them in intellect or in rationality is the highest of them in rank in this world and the hereafter. أَرْفَعُهُمْ دَرَجَةً فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. So this is very important. So this is a heritage, this is an approach to faith which puts great emphasis on understanding, on knowledge, on rationality. Then Imam said this famous statement, Ya Hisham, inna lillahi ala nas hujjatain. God the Almighty has two ways of communicating his will to us, two ways of telling us what he expects from us. Hujjatan zahira wa hujjatan batinan. The external way of communicating his will to us, the external proof as they translate, and the internal one. فَأَمَّا الظَّاهِرَةِ. The external one is al-anbiya wal-rusul wal-a'imma, the prophets, the messengers, the imams. وَأَمَّا الْبَاطِنَةِ فَالْعُقُولِ. But God has also an internal way of communicating to us, and that is through our intellect. This is why some have suggested that we can consider intellect as an internal prophet, as we can consider prophets and imams as embodiment of intellect. So this beautiful harmony between intellect and revelation, between those things that we understand through our rational capacity and what we understand through the revelation, keeps religion away from many problems. Many problems start when people just follow the literal sense of the text without being able to consider what intellectual evidence provides as support for reading and understanding the text. And also when it comes to implementation, again, reason has very important role. And also in Shia jurisprudence, even we believe that reason is not only a way to understand, actually reason itself is a source, is a dalil for drawing Islamic rulings. Then Imam continues and he says, but this is not only a matter of academic discourse. When we say reason has such high capacity for acting as a hujjah of God, as a proof, as a way of understanding God's will, this is not something that just comes when you study and even master logic and philosophy and try to develop sound arguments. It's much more than that. It's not just theoretical. It's not just a kind of scholarly approach. It's also a matter of spirituality. Because many times our reason is affected by our desires. Many people think what they believe in is the outcome of rational thinking, but in reality it's their own desires projected as rational finding. So Imam says that you have to be very careful. One of the things that you have to be careful is not to develop unrealistic desires and wishes, what we call in Islamic literature tulul amal. Unrealistic desires can darken the intellect. He says, Man أظلم نور تفكره بطول عمله. The one who darkens the light of his thinking with unrealistic desires. ومحى طرائف حكمته بفضول كلامه. And he wipes out subtle points of wisdom that he can understand by speaking too much. One of the things that is mentioned in many different spiritual traditions is the value of reducing a speech and the value of silence. I very much admire the practice of silence in the Benedictine tradition. We have also Sister Patricia from Chicago, who is also a Benedictine sister, and Abba Timothy. And for them, silence is very important. And there are some hours that they keep silent in the monastery. So Imam Kazim alayhi salam says the one who speaks too much, then his ability to understand and be inspired by God for understanding subtle points will be affected. And also the one who follows the lower desires of the soul. أطفأ نور عبرته بشهوات نفسه. His ability for taking lessons, for understanding, taking practical lessons from life of other people or himself or herself would be badly affected. So Imam says, فَكَأَنَّمَا أَعَانَ هَوَاهُ عَلَى حَدْمِ عَقْلِهِ. He has helped his own lower desires against his or her own intellect. And then he continues And I mention only one more sentence, which is also related to learning and teaching and to students and teachers and scholars. He says, "La najata illa bil-ta'ah." There is no salvation without obedience. Obedience to God is the key for salvation. But وَالطَّاعَةُ بِالْعِلْمِ, obedience comes with knowledge. If you don't know what God wants from you, then how can you obey Him? So obedience needs knowledge. وَالْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ, knowledge needs learning. Knowledge needs commitment to studying, reading, taking lessons, very much taking lessons from qualified people. وَالتَّعَلُّمُ بِالْعَقْلِ يُعْتَقَدْ, when you learn something, if you at the same time don't get engaged in intellectual processing of what you learn, you would not be able to develop solid beliefs. There are people who just fill their storage here with data, but getting data is something and understanding is something else. Imam Kazim says that learning and thinking should come together. I remember once my teacher told us this story, that a teacher in Qom told his student that last night I was passing by your hujra, by the room you stay, and I didn't see that you study properly. He said, why? I was awake till midnight or even after midnight and my light was on. He said, yes, that's the reason. I saw your light is on. This shows that you were not involved in deep thinking. After studying, you need some time to switch off the light and just be thinking in a very quiet and peaceful setting. Some people study a lot, but they don't contemplate enough. So Imam Kazim alayhi salam says, you need also to be contemplating so that you can develop proper and endurable understanding. Then he said, وَلَا عِلْمَ إِلَّا مِنْ عَالِمٍ رَبَّانِي. The true knowledge, which is light, does not come except through personal encounter with a man of God, with a learned person who is a man of God. It's like a candle. If you want to ignite a candle, you need to bring a burning candle next to it, or take this to a burning candle. If you just warm the room, even if you make the room very hot, the candle cannot start giving light. You need the touch. That holy touch of a man of God would make this candle able to shine. لا علم إلا من عالم رباني. And then Imam continues, I hope this little introduction to this hadith would do a little justice to show how important it is to be rational, to be involved in rational way of understanding, but at the same time how important it is for rationality to be spiritual, to be able to leave aside lower desires, immoral actions, and also to be in touch with people who have lived a life of piety, who would be able to give us good access to real knowledge, which is light, which comes from God. I thank God the Almighty for giving me this opportunity to be with you, and I pray that our conference today and tomorrow would go very well, and we would be able to have very fruitful discussions, and also we'll be able to enhance our friendship and our relation, which would be very helpful for all of us who are involved in Shia studies. Thank you very much. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.